We hear the term natural disaster all the time. But what if I told you that phrase is, well, kind of misleading? And this isn't just about playing with words. Getting this right could actually be the key to preventing them.
I know it sounds a little wild, but get this. Experts have been saying the term natural disaster is a misnomer since 1976, for almost half a century. And again, this isn't just some academic debate. It really changes how we think about catastrophes and, more importantly, how we can actually get ready for them.
So, okay, what's the big deal, right? Why does the word natural even matter? Well, when we call a disaster natural, it kind of suggests it's just fate, an act of God, something totally out of our hands. It makes us sound like helpless victims waiting for nature to strike. But the truth? It's way more complicated than that, and honestly, it gives us a lot more power than you'd think. All right, to really get this, we've got to split two ideas apart. There's a natural hazard, and then there's a disaster. They are not the same thing. A hazard is the event itself. The earthquake, the hurricane, the tsunami. That's the part that's actually natural. But a disaster, that's what happens when one of those hazards slams into a community that isn't ready for it. It's all about the human impact. Here's a super simple way to think about it. The ground shaking? That's the hazard. The buildings crumbling, the fires, the terrible loss of life in San Francisco in 1906, that was the disaster. See the difference? I mean, if a massive earthquake hits the middle of an empty desert, it's still a hazard, for sure, but it's not a disaster because there's nobody there to be harmed. Okay, so this leads us right to the main idea of this whole explainer. If a disaster isn't just a random act of nature, then what is it? It actually breaks down into a really simple but super powerful equation. First step in our equation, the natural hazard. And let's be clear, this part is going to happen no matter what. Tectonic plates are going to shift, storms are going to brew, volcanoes are going to do their thing. We can't stop that piece of the puzzle. But then you add the second absolutely critical ingredient, human vulnerability. This is our part. This is the human side of the equation. And it's not just about, building a house on a fault line. It's about our building codes, our social safety nets, our economies, everything we do to protect ourselves. Or, well, not. And there you have it. You take that natural hazard, you add human vulnerability, and what do you get? A disaster. So the big takeaway here is that a disaster isn't just an act of nature. It's what happens when nature and society crash into each other. Okay, so let's dig into that a little deeper. How do we create this vulnerability? It's not usually one big mistake, but more like a whole bunch of choices and policies that add up over time. Let's break down what some of those are. So a lot of these factors, these things that make us vulnerable, are actually things we can control. We're talking about things like flimsy building codes in earthquake zones, or deciding to build entire neighborhoods in areas we know will flood. It's also about things like social inequality, which often leaves the most marginalized people in the most dangerous places. Even something like having a bad communication system to warn people, that's a choice. Think about it. A huge earthquake hits a city in Japan, which has some of the best building codes in the world. There's damage, sure, but most people survive. That exact same hazard hitting a place with poor construction, like Haiti in 2010, creates a catastrophe on a completely different level. The hazard was the same. The vulnerability is what made all the difference. I love this quote because it just nails it. We can't stop an earthquake from happening or a hurricane from forming. That's a given. But we absolutely 100% have a say in how much damage it does. The hazard is inevitable, but the disaster, that part is not. So if there's one thing to remember, it's this. The event itself isn't the disaster. The disaster is really a failure of our systems to protect people from something we could see coming. It's not just about geology or weather, it's a social problem, and it's a political problem. All right, now this is where things get really interesting. When you look at the data over the last few decades, you see this super weird story unfold. There are two huge, powerful trends going in completely opposite directions. It's a total paradox. Okay, trend number one. The price tag for disasters is going through the roof. I mean, it's skyrocketing. Since the 70s, the economic damage has shot up by 7 times. We're talking hundreds of billions of dollars in damage year after year. But, and this is the crazy part, at the exact same time, fewer people are dying. The global death rate from these events has totally plummeted. Over the last 100 years, it's dropped to just a tiny fraction of what it used to be. So we're saving more lives than ever before in history. So what on earth is going on? How can costs be exploding while death rates are falling? Well, it's actually pretty simple when you break it down. We've gotten really good at saving lives. Our weather forecasts are better, our warning systems are faster, and public education works. But at the same time, we've been building more and more expensive stuff. And we're building it in risky places, right on the coast, in floodplains. So when a hurricane does hit, our awesome warning systems get people out of the way, which is great. But that hurricane still tears through billions of dollars worth of homes and businesses. Fewer deaths, but way more destruction. And it's not just about the money either. The environmental damage can be just mind-boggling. Take the 2011 tsunami in Japan. It generated something like 5 million tons of debris. Can you even picture that? It's a monumental cleanup job that has environmental effects for years and years to come. Okay, so here's the good news in all of this. If disasters aren't just natural things that happen to us, if they're a result of our own vulnerabilities, well, that means we have the power to fix it. And that realization has sparked this huge shift in thinking, from just reacting and cleaning up the mess to actually trying to stop the disaster before it even happens. This whole new approach has a name: Disaster Risk Reduction, or DRR for short. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's all about attacking the vulnerability part of that equation we talked about. It means being smart, looking at our weaknesses, and fixing them before the hurricane or the earthquake shows up. So this all fits into the bigger picture of emergency management, which has 4 basic phases. For a long, long time, we were mostly focused on the last 2. Response, what to do during the chaos, and recovery, how to clean up after. But this new way of thinking, DRR, flips that script. It puts all the energy into the first 2 phases. Mitigation, that's things like stronger building codes, but also smarter ideas like protecting wetlands that can soak up floodwater for us. And preparedness, which isn't just about having an evacuation route, but about making sure everyone knows the plan and gets the warning. At the end of the day, the goal here is a total change in how we think. It's about getting out of this reactive crouch, where we're just waiting for the next bad thing to happen, and getting into a proactive stance. It's about building communities that are tough, that are resilient, so that when nature does its thing, it doesn't have to become a disaster. So that leaves us with one last really big question. We know for a fact that another hurricane is coming, another earthquake, another flood. The next hazard is absolutely inevitable. But now that we know all this, is the next disaster inevitable too? And the answer to that, well, that's up to us.